April 2024 marks a significant milestone as South Africa celebrates 30 years of democracy and the Gauteng Provincial Legislature's existence. In 1994, legislatures were established to make laws for provinces and hold provincial governments accountable for service delivery and the use of public funds. Committees of the legislature consider laws, monitor the work of provincial government departments, and make recommendations about the work of departments, including their structure, functioning, and policies. Meet the chairpersons.
Thank you for joining us once again. We are in conversation with E-Government and Research Development Portfolio Committee Chairperson Mbali Hlophe. Thank you for making time to speak to the people of Gauteng.
Thank you, and hello.
Tell us a bit about the committee and the department it oversees.
So, as you know, that is the Committee for E-Government. So we oversee the work that the Department of E-Gov does. So E-Gov, plainly put, because a lot of people never know what you mean by E-Gov. It's electronic government. That's in full. What you'd also regard as digital government. It's about how do we digitize the work that is done by a government, but also by a community at large. So this department is really responsible for getting society and getting Gauteng in tune with what we call the 4IR. As we all know that everybody talks about tech and how technology is part of our space and so forth. But it's really about, and this department is really responsible for how do you get people, how do you get tech into the work that government does, but importantly, how do you utilize tech as a measure or an instrument to provide services to individuals.
There would have been some concerns that one would have seen in the reports on ICT skills development that were picked up by the committee in its recent engagement with the department, and please correct me if I'm wrong. In terms of in the reduction on the number of beneficiaries and its impact on the priorities of the department, please talk to us about that.
Look, I mean, the department has a huge mandate, but with a small budget. And I think that's part of the unfortunate, circumstances that it finds itself within. That, as you can imagine, I mean, you're in Gauteng, it's an economic hub. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of individuals that you need to touch. We've got a huge population, the biggest in the country. So, resources become a huge factor of that. I mean, just putting up infrastructure to connect people is a lot of money. It's a lot of resources, and you can see it in the books of the department. So yes, there are those concerns in terms of their ability to stretch out as to the length and depth of the province. But the department also indicates that resources are a big factor. And as you know, that government currently and government in its totality is not in a place where we have a lot of resources at hand that really can be spread out. So I think whilst there's a will and a need for there to be greater resources given, there's also the reality where you have a large population of people that are dependent on the public sector, that are dependent on government grants and so forth. So you really have a small pot to draw your income tax from, and that obviously will have an impact in terms of the budgets that are available. So yes, it is a concern of ours, but I think it's also important to understand the context within which we find ourselves.
Is there space for public and private partnerships?
Absolutely, especially in this space. And this is what we told the department, that because it's a department that has to do with tech, innovation and so forth, they really need to do more work in terms of getting the private sector on board. Yes, there might not be a lot of resources in terms of the public purse, but nothing stops them from going on to big business. And they're all located here. I mean, we're in Gauteng, where 70% of big business resides. So there's absolutely nothing that stops them in it. But it's about that agility for a department to understand that, yes, you might have these restrictions before you, but how do you turn the tide and utilize what is seen as a limitation to be an advantage? So you get big business on board and you're able to have a lot of more private-public partnerships in place.
I'm sure you were cheering when you saw the president with Elon Musk.
Absolutely. I mean, look, he's He's a son of the soil. Of course, now he's a resident full-time in the US and stuff, but I think it's good that you're seeing more individuals, even though they have left the country and they're doing great things outside, but they're coming back to reinvest. And I think that's the good message that it sends out, especially for us that are coming from an economy that has been really depressed, coming from a COVID pandemic and so forth. You really need business and individuals in business to come back and reinvest.
What are some of the most significant challenges that you can talk about faced by your committee in terms of the oversight work, in terms of the department that you oversee, and how do you plan to address these issues to ensure that the people of Gauteng get better service?
Look, I mean, there's a lot of work that is there. And in our meeting with the department, part of the things that we indicated to them, I mean, they took us through the APP and so forth, and one of the things that we indicated as a weakness in the current APP and how they're working is that they still see themselves as a part of eGov. And remember now, this department is a standalone, so something must distinguish them as a standalone. And that's really what we gave to the department to say, yes, you used to be a department that was combined with another before, but you can't treat yourself now as some younger brother. How do you stand out? Because now you've got a bigger mandate, you're a standalone department, but that must be seen in the work that you're doing. But importantly is that even though the department is doing quite a lot of work and investing quite a lot in infrastructure and so forth, but we also felt that they need to look inside government, because there's still a lot of stuff that we're doing. I mean, if you think about memos and all of that stuff, there's still a lot of archaic methods that are utilized in government, and this is where eGov really should be a trailblazer. How does eGov assist other departments to reach their targets? How do they help other departments make sure that they make work and the processing of paperwork, the signatures thereof and so forth, a lot smoother and easier? I mean, we're seeing this in corporate, and this is what we indicated to them. So in terms of the challenges that we have, it's really about pushing the department to understand that this is not your ceiling. So you really need to push far above what you have been historically and really stand out so that you're able to show everybody that you are eGov, but also you must set the trail for what it is that the country must do. As you know, Gauteng tends to lead in terms of what takes place. So if eGov can get that right and really get us into the 4IR, speaking 5IR now, not even 4 anymore, if really they can do that work, they can really be a trailblazer.
Let's talk about the collaboration between committees, yours included. How do you plan to ensure that the department you oversee meets performance targets and addresses what the community wants?
Yeah. So this department is cross-cutting, and I think there needs to be an appreciation of that, firstly, that they can't be a standalone and they should never see themselves as just a department that works for themselves. They are cross-cutting, which means they need to get a lot of input and engagement from other departments because they're providing a service to them. So they need to have an understanding. If it's the Department of Education, what are the services that are required? What is their clientele? And their clientele in this regard being the learners, the teachers, the sector. What is required in terms of tech and how do you move kids to the next level? If it's community safety, what are they doing from a crime fighting point of view? Of course, we've seen the panic buttons, which is great and that the department is doing, but how do we bring tech more advanced into crime fighting and so forth? So there's a lot of things that they need to look into each and every department, identify who are the key stakeholders, and have a sense of what is it that they can bring in from a tech point of view, whether it's agriculture and so forth. I mean, every sector, tech has an involvement in it. So we really are promoting that this government must be appreciating that it is a cross-cutting department, and therefore it does need to speak to a lot of the other departments and get their views, but also take them to the next level, because they must, that innovation aspect of the work they do, they must be also be able to solve problems, be solution orientated and show them that tech can really make things move faster and quicker.
Would you say that's the legacy that you would like to leave in terms of your position in the committee and the committee itself?
Absolutely. I think as a committee, we have an appreciation that, yes, we're not the department, so we're very clear not to blur those lines, and that ours is to do oversight, but importantly is to push the department to great heights, because we sit as representatives of the public, and we have an appreciation of where the disparities are, what is required, and so forth. So it's really about pushing the department to really go to the extra mile.
Mbali Hlophe, thank you so much for chatting to us, and continue the good work you do for the people
Thank
of
you.
Gauteng. I'm sure it'll pay off.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.